I found out my stepsister and stepmother are planning to kill me. This is not a joke. They want my inheritance and they said they're going to off me. I caught it with their text messages. Here's what happened. I'm a 26-year-old female living with my dad, who's 77, my stepmom 50, and my stepsister 25. My mother passed away several years ago, and my father remarried a woman who already had a daughter. I had an older brother who passed away in an accident a long time ago, leaving behind a wife. So I guess I am the only child because I do not consider my stepsister as my sibling. I do not like the woman that my father's married to. I never have. It was very clear to me in the beginning that she's taking advantage of my dad, who's a very nice man. All because he has money. I mean, you only have to see how she and her daughter are always spending my father's money to get that she's only in it for the money. My father is too kind-hearted and generous to see that she's not who she claims to be. I kept my distance from Clarice and her daughter Brittany when I was younger. Brittany was always trying to compete with me for my father's love, and I found it really pointless to even give her any attention. I focused on school, and when I was done, I got a job and moved out. Brittany, on the other hand, nearly flunked high school and then she flunked out of college, so she'll still stay at home and spend my father's money. I moved out because I wanted to focus on living my own life. I was tired of Clarice and Brittany. I still visit my father's house as much as I could with my busy schedule, but when I was there, I stayed out of their way. About a year ago, his health started to deteriorate, and so I decided to move back home. The main reason I moved back home was that I did not trust those two around my father. I suspected them of trying something to make him pass away sooner, just so they could have his money. I've lived with them for many years, so it's safe to say that I know them like the back of my hand. The only thing that they care about is money, and I don't trust them to take care of him. So then, I moved back home. My boyfriend Keith was a bit disappointed because we had planned to move in together, but he understood that I had to be there for my father. When I arrived, I found out that the nurse they had appointed to take care of my dad was so incompetent. This further raised my suspicions that they did not want my dad to get well. So then, I hired a nurse for my father and continued going to work, but I took shorter hours. My stepmom and sister did not even seem fazed by his little ill health. They pretty much shopped most of the time that I was there. Now, I'm a bit of a neat freak and I'm particular about how my stuff looks. I always want my stuff to be color coordinated, arranged according to size, etc., be it at home or work. I have a camera in my bedroom just in case someone enters and took something that's mine. I did not think anyone would, though. I started to notice that there were a few things out of place in my room, like my light clothes would be mixed with my dark, or my files would not be arranged in chronological order, as I always did. I did not think too much about it because I was swamped with taking care of the estate while going to work. My brother should have been the one who was taking care of my father's paperwork and answering business inquiries, but he passed away. Unfortunately, leaving behind my sister-in-law, who I get on well with. She usually comes to the house to help me out with some stuff at home when I had my hands full. Clarice and Brittany did some stuff that seemed a bit suspicious to me, which I figured was just them gossiping about me. I would catch them whispering, but as soon as I entered the room, they would get quiet. Then they would argue a lot, but when I asked if everything was okay, I would get some very vague answers. So I got very suspicious, as those two are not so bright, and I did not want to put them past coming up with a scheme. I told my father about how suspicious they were being, But he told me that I've never gotten along with them, so that's why I was suspicious of everything they were doing. I had a bad feeling about them, and I would not rest until I got to the bottom of it. My boyfriend tried to convince me to move out because of the way I was so uneasy around them, but I refused because I did not want to leave my father alone. I managed to take some time and go through the footage of my room, which was a lot of footage to get through since I have not been there for many months. I always make sure my door is locked and I clean my room no matter what, because, well, I do not want anyone disrupting my order. But then, I started to notice that they managed to enter my room several times. I checked the dates on it and I noticed that they started to enter my room months before. Who knew where they've gotten that key? But I figured that they tried to duplicate it. I was sure they wanted to steal some money from me because they looked through my stuff. It was only that once and they never came again. That was until they entered my room the previous day. In the past clip, I did not get a clear understanding of what they were saying to each other, but on this particular one, they were right in front of my hidden camera. I listened with dread as their secret came out of their mouth. They said that my dad did not like he had a high chance of recovery, so they had to go ahead with their plan as soon as possible. Otherwise, it would be too late. I had to be out of the picture as soon as possible. Clarice suggested that they put poison in my water that stayed in my mini freezer. But Brittany said it was a stupid idea and the poison was traceable. My stepmom said that they had to hurry soon before my father gave me power of attorney, which was when I realized that it was what they have been looking for. But it did not make sense that they would want the papers of my power of attorney. That was until my stepmother said that Brittany had better come out with a good plan to get rid of me soon, before I kicked them out. Brittany said that at least they were getting a share of the inheritance, so they would not be completely ruined if my father passed away. But her mom said it was not good enough. They've gotten me out of the picture because I was getting 70% of the property, and the last 30% would be shared between them and my brother's wife. If I had power of attorney, I could kick them out of the will completely. It all clicked that they were plotting to kill me for a share of the property. I've been so focused on trying to handle the estate that I did not notice they've been searching through my room. I did not immediately confront them. In such a scary situation, I had to keep my head screwed on tight. I had no idea how their plan had accelerated ever since that convo. I needed to find out how deep they were into this scheme, so that I could have them arrested if it was needed to, or at least protect myself and my dad from them. It still feels surreal to even think about what they wanted to do to me. I knew that they were money hungry, but this was a whole different level. And the scary part was that they had so many chances to pull off their plan. Because people have been killed because of money before. But yeah, I did not think my life would soon be in danger because of money. I don't want to lie. I wanted it to be a lie or something. I was sure that the two of them were not that cold-blooded, not cold-blooded enough, and had been the only conversation when they discussed killing me. I was beyond shocked, and I guess a huge part of me did not even believe that it could be true. So I decided to get more evidence. They had so many opportunities if they wanted to get rid of me. Then surely they would have done so already. I decided to check their phone to see if I could get some tangible proof. Anything that would prove that they were really out to get me, and how far they were with their plans. The mother was just a bit smarter than the daughter, and I did not want to alert her, so I sort of was on to them. So, I went to Brittany's room with some jewelry to gift her. She fell for the hook, line, and sinker. When she was busy admiring it, I stole her phone. I'd been observing her for some days, and I knew her password was her poodle's name, which was not surprising. I started to look through her phone, and I checked her call register, but I did not find anything that was interesting enough. Then I check her text messages, which was where I got all the juicy information. The messages started about a month ago. I read through them as fast as I could so that I could give the phone back before she got suspicious. She fancies herself an influencer, so her phone is always on her. They went something along the lines of this. Clarice says, "Guess what I found out?" Brittany replied with something stupid, then there were a few messages of her mom scolding her. "You have to cut her trip short and come back home. I saw my husband's will and it does not look good." "Was he not supposed to leave everything to us?" "Yeah, I thought I had him under my control. He left 70% of his money to Eloise, and the last 30 to be split between us and Brad's wife." "Oh, that's good, right?" It showed that there was a missed call and then nothing else for that day. I checked the dates and saw that it was when Brittany went on some trip. There were also a few texts between them that seemed to have occurred when I was at the house. Some of them were into telling each other that I left my room. I'm guessing that they wanted to see if I had power of attorney from the messages they sent, and then when they did not find it, it was them updating each of them on my father's health. Brittany asked my stepmom if they could not just make a fake will, but Clarice said that there was a chance that I knew and I would contest the will. She seemed to know an awful lot about covering up her crimes. Then there were suggestions of how they would off me. They could not seem to agree on one solution, and they all ended up doing was arguing until they came back to where they started. Some of the suggestions were clearly some that they found from watching too much crime TV. Cutting off my brakes, cyanide, kidnapping me and forcing me to sign over an entire estate, and so many others. But yeah, they could not seem to agree on one idea, and every time that they wanted to try something, someone messed up and did not go through with it. I only read through the phone for about half an hour, which was pushing it with the way that Brittany was obsessed with her cellular device. The last message were the ones that gave me chills through my whole body and made me feel like they were dangerously close to agreeing. Brittany says, "Mom, he seems to be getting worse. What should we do? We don't have time." "Calm down. I'm thinking of something. We have to be careful. We could get caught. They're rich. Plus that boyfriend of hers would get suspicious." "Ooh, let us frame him for it." "I like how you think. A lover's quarrel gone wrong could be just the perfect escape for us. Then we wait for the old man to pass and we're rich. Brad's wife will be easy to fight for the estate." "Well, when should we do it?" "It has to be soon, about a few days from now. She's getting suspicious. We cannot let her catch us." I checked the rest of her chats with other people, but I did not find anything useful. My first thought about this was to be scared. It takes a lot to get me to fear anyone, but I was struck by the reality that if I stayed at that house any longer, I was going to lose my life. I wanted to tell my father, but he was in such a fragile state, and I hope he would overcome his illness still. I'd already lost my brother, and I was not ready to lose my father yet. He was not doing well, and he probably only had a few days left to live. I did not want to cut his time any short. I was torn because he's my dad after all, and a betrayal like this would be too much for him to take. But yeah, the entire situation is messed up, and there does not to see a simple way to move forward. Or am I just thinking with my emotions? After I finished reading through the text messages, my mind was going through a million thoughts an hour. So many solutions, pros and cons were rushing through my mind, but I forced myself to pull myself together. I could not get them suspicious of me. I was no fool. Any indication that I knew would lead to the situation escalating. I managed to slip Brittany's back her phone. Then I packed a small bag and I left for my boyfriend. I was thinking of a lot of things at the moment and I was shaking bad. It takes a lot to get me scared, but on that day, I was completely out of my mind with fear. I informed the nurse to take good care of my dad and not to let anyone visit him without her being present. Then I left the house and went to my boyfriend's apartment. After I calmed down a bit, I let him know when I found out about Brittany and Clarice threatening to kill me. We discussed it for a bit and agreed that we could not let my father know due to his conditions, nor could I just kick them out of the house. It was not in my name. It's been several days right now and I've not managed to get any sleep due to stress. Time is ticking and my father could pass away at any moment. Not only that, I left all the proof I've gathered at the house in a hurry to leave. I'm thinking of going to the police, but I'm unsure if I'll get immediate help because all I have is my word. I have no idea if they've managed to hire a person for the job yet. I told them that I am on a business trip, but my time's running thin. Any advice right now would do, but I'm scared. My father is still fine, and I'm checking in with the nurse daily, but they're still asking me when I'm coming back. I have no idea what to do now. I cannot think of a good way to get out of this situation, even if it's just legal advice or a way I could outsmart those two. Please help, because I have no idea what to do. Just when you thought there could not be any more sick people in the world. If you guys have been subscribed to the channel for a while, you know all the crazy stories we read, and we've seen some absolutely vile creatures. But the fact that stepmother and stepsister could both be this level of evil blows my mind. I hope OP figures out what's going to happen. There's a complete update for this which we're going to jump into, but first, drop your comments down below and let me know, on a scale of 1 to 10, how vile are these creatures? Okay, here's the update. A few months ago, my life was in danger, and I feared for my father too. I left the house but told my sister-in-law what they were plotting. She advised me to go to the police, which I should have done in the first place. I was afraid that they would not believe because I had no proof. Thank you for the advice and support. It helped me more than you can imagine. This is an update on what happened after I ran away. I managed to calm down thanks to Keith and decided that I would try to remove my dad from the house without their knowledge so that he would recover, then I could tell him the truth. I heard about a facility for chronically ill patients with some of the best doctors. The waiting list was a bit long, but they promised to help me within a month. Then I would get restraining orders against both of them, and we would remove them from Dad's estate. I just needed him to hang on for a little bit. He could not stay with me and Keith because Keith's apartment is a bit smaller side otherwise. We would have taken him in. While I was making the arrangements, I got a phone call from Clarice telling me to immediately come back home. I told her I was coming, but I did not go because I thought it was a trick to get me back and finish me off. I've not even left Keith's place since I found out about their plans. But as long as they thought that I was out of town, I was safe. Just then, the nurse I hired told me that my father's condition had worsened, and they rushed him to the hospital. I was surprised because so far, I've been getting positive updates. The last time I spoke to him was a phone call where he said he missed me. I told him that I would see him soon, but I had some things to sort out at work. This left me with no choice but to go to the hospital, where Clarice and Brittany were. Seeing them there got me very angry, and I had to try my hardest not to tell them immediately to leave. They did not love my dad, they just loved his money. When I got there, they were sobbing and acting as if they cared about my father. Clarice then had the nerve to bring up how I have been absent from my father's side in the last few days, and I should have paused my business trip. Yeah, if I had, I would be 6 feet under the ground. I had Keith come with me for the safety, and we kept an eye on them. They were still acting strange and whispering amongst themselves. We were there for several hours, but got no update on my father's health, except that he was in critical condition. They allowed me to see him, but he was unresponsive and just looked worse than the last time I've seen him. I said my goodbyes just in case this was the last time I saw him alive. Losing all my blood relatives in the space of just a few years was more than I could fathom. Then finally, the doctors told us that they tried everything but my father has passed. It was ruled out natural death because of his condition and old age, which I did not want to believe. The nurse told me that he's been getting better daily. He did not even know that those two tried to kill me. I'm still heartsore when I think of how I missed this last moment, and I wonder if he even knew that I was living with snakes. All of us united to notify his business partners and our distant family that my father has passed. I could not stop blaming myself, and part of myself still does. Maybe I should have just let them take the money and taken my father away from them. I regretted all those years I stayed away because I did not want to see the two in the house. Clarice put on the show of being the grieving wife, getting sympathy from people. As his wife and daughter, Clarice and I had to work together on the funeral. There's no such paperwork, and since I've been sorting out his finances for a while, I had to deal with it. But I worked myself to the point of burning out and forgetting about my grief for a while. As soon as I had informed all the important people about my father's passing, I requested a post-mortem, even though the doctors had said that it's been from natural causes. And as expected, my stepmother said that it was unnecessary and a bit disrespectful for me to do that. I asked her, "What are you hiding?" And that shut her up. Now she suddenly wanted to act like she had morals. I just needed peace of mind that there was no foreplay leading to my father's death. I was able to request the post-mortem even though she tried to stop me. In the few days after, while we were waiting for his results, I had to put aside my grief and work fast. The funeral arrangements were up to me, so I was the sole inheritor. I fought with Clarice more times than I can count. It was like she wanted to turn my father's funeral into some pity party for herself and Brittany. It disgusted me that they had any right to be at his funeral. I knew Clarice and that she would even have more motivation to finish me off now. So I decided to get them both arrested. I still did not have the proof that they tried to kill me. I got advice from my family lawyer, and he told me that if I had the proof, it would be easier for me to get them off the will and out of my life. So I got my sister-in-law to distract Brittany, who always fell for everything, and this time I took screenshots of the evidence of them plotting to kill me. I planned to kick them out as soon as the funeral was done, since I owned 70% of the estate. And with the evidence that they tried to kill me, have them removed from the father's will. I was tired of being scared for my life. I got the damning messages from Brittany's phone, and this time there were updates where they were panicking because I left, and my father was getting worse. They did not have enough money to pay off the guy as well. Then, when there was no further mention of the plans to murder me, I sent all those messages to Keith. An alternate email, and my sister-in-law said that multiple copies would exist, even if they decided to clear the chat. If anything happened to me, then they had something to send the police. I got my father's post-mortem results a few days before his funeral, and they suggested that his death may not have been an accident. There were traces of deadly chemical in his blood, and from the results, he's been drugged for a while. The estimate was that he's been given small doses for over a year, and that was what kept on getting him worse. It was nearly untraceable, but the dosage had increased closer to his death, which blew the cover. My first thought was, they've done it, but why? When they were only going to get 15% of his property? I could never understand how their minds work, and I don't know, they're irrational. They had to have some help with someone with at least half a brain. I waited for my father to be laid to rest, Then I went after them with everything I had. The funeral was a modest affair where I had to listen to them lying that they cared about him. I gave in all the evidence I had and they wanted to kill me, and my father's post-mortem report as well. As soon as I laid the charge, the police arrested them. My father had barely rested and they were already shopping and going to day spas, where they were arrested. Both of them were charged and I moved back home. I hired extra security as I did not trust them not to try to kill me once again. I also stayed with my sister-in-law and Keith, who refused to let me stay alone. I only went to see them once, and of course, they acted innocent. They called me useless for leaving the house when my dad was sick. I told them that I would do everything possible to make sure that they rot in prison. After all, I had the camera footage from when they entered my room and the text messages. They also accused me of being the one who poisoned my own father. How sick. I got my father's lawyers, the best in town, to help me with the case. They stayed in jail for a while an investigation into my attempted murder and my father's suspicious death was done. They still had money, somehow, and they managed to get a lawyer. I was also brought in for questioning, as they were considered everyone a suspect, especially us as the family members. But I had my alibi as to where I was when my father passed away. Not only that, but I've not been at the house for days. They also got my phone records and could not pinpoint my phone to being at the house for over a week. My father had a very large estate, and his death had a large payout, so they thought about my step-family and I had the intention. As for my step-family, they'd been at my home when my dad passed, and they had access to his medication if they managed to get past the nurse. Their bank records did not show any suspicious activity, as they've always spent like crazy. Many of my father's business partners were brought in for questioning about his marriage to her, and to my surprise, nothing was incriminating. They would only get 15% from the will. My father had not altered his will ever since, and I was still getting 70%. My dad's case was stalled. New evidence seemed to come in only to be dismissed as being circumstantial. They even brought in a toxicologist who said the small amounts of drugs laced in his meds could have been cause of his death. Business rivals were also brought into question, with his death and the division of his estate. His business would greatly suffer, it was so draining, and all I wanted was justice for my father's death. I requested for them to question the nurse, who had been taking care of him since he's gotten ill over a year ago. She had a squeaky clean record, and they could not get her to admit to anything. And the nurse that I hired swore that she had not let anyone come into the room and give my dad nothing. She was the number one suspect along with my stepmom and Brittany, but I did not think she would do such a thing to my father. She had seemed so innocent and willing to help. The prosecution tried to find out who has been trying to kill my dad, but the charges on Brittany and Clarice did not stick. Soon, the two of them were acquitted of my father's death and the case was suspended, pending further investigation. So, it was either an accident or a murder, but no one paid for his death. Then, there was my case of attempted murder. The case eventually went to trial for several months, for a long time. They denied trying to kill me even though there was evidence and the screenshots that I sent. Unfortunately, the footage where they had confessed in my room that they wanted to get rid of me to attain the power of attorney was nowhere to be found. I'd made a huge mistake by leaving it in my room when I should have taken it. After months of trial and all their stalling, more evidence was coming to light, and they were facing a hefty fine or imprisonment. Then, a breakthrough came that made them plead guilty to avoid a heavy sentence. They arrested the guy they wanted to use to, quote, take care of me, and it did not even take time for small-time gangster to sing. that they offered him money to kill me. But of course, the deal did not go through, as here I am. They had suddenly asked him to halt the hit in the week when I left the house. So then, they decided to plead guilty to trying to kill me. As for my father's murder, they could not get anything solid on them. For the charge of trying to kill me, they got off with a fine and just 1 year in prison each, since they did call it off. I was still and am outraged. They should have at least gotten 5 years in my opinion. But since there was only intention and they never carried out their plans, they got off nearly scotch-free. My father's case remains an open sate, but no one knows what happened. The investigators theorized that the medication that had been used to treat him could have contained harmful drugs that reacted badly with him and caused his untimely death. I think that Brittany and Clarice planned it in such a way that made me think they were after me when instead they wanted to go for my father. Once the cases were sorted out, the issue of the will started. After paying off outstanding debts and giving small beneficiaries, they divided it. All along, we thought that my father was going to give them 15%. But with them having been prime suspects in my father's death and their attempt on my life as the main benefactor, I was able to appeal. I was tired of going up and down the court system. No, they could not have something to look forward to once they got out. The law was on my side, and I managed to have them removed from the will. The look on my stepmother and stepsister's faces when the judge announced that they were getting nothing was absolutely priceless. They've gone to such length to get the estate, but now they're flat broke and in prison. They might still try to countersue when they do get out, but that is if they have the money to do so. I got the majority of the estate, and my sister-in-law also got her share, which was fair enough as it was rightfully hers. And she moved in with me permanently. Now, I'm trying to keep my father's company afloat, putting in long hours and trying to make everything work out. It suffered a great deal after my father's death. I'm also starting to go to grief counseling so that I can be at peace with the fact that my father's gone. As for me and Keith, maybe next year we'll finally be able to get married. It just does not feel right with my father gone. And I wanted him to be there for my wedding all these years, but we cannot always get what we want. I know many people say this, but it is so important to spend time with the loved ones while they're still alive. I honestly cannot let go of my suspicion about my father's death. A few days ago, they had to close the case because they had no concrete evidence. My stepsister and her mom had no real motive to kill him. They denied it and claimed that maybe it was an enemy. But who? My sister-in-law? A business partner? The nurse? A distant family member? I fear I'll never know. Maybe I should stop digging into this. Maybe they had nothing to do with it. But it's now a cold case, and it does not seem like it'll be getting any answers anytime soon. Who do you think could have done it? Or am I just being paranoid? Or was it just old age that killed my father? The fact that they planned all this, had all this evidence, and they still only got 1 year in prison, I cannot believe this. I would be extremely outraged. The only good thing I can see about this is now OP has basically all the money, and OP does not have to worry about being killed at the grocery store. But 1 year? Guys, let me know what you think about this in the comment section down below. I'm also very happy that OP is getting therapy. That's all the content I have for you guys today. I hope you liked this long story with a complete update. If you did, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. Have a wonderful night. Mr. Reddito will see you tomorrow.